Welcome to this episode of the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds Juan is out today, so be running this thing solo. As always, the show is brought to you by La Terrain. Use code DGD at checkout. Get 10% off your purchase site-wide. All right, guys, we're talking about 2023 and some names to know. I'm going to jump right into it because it's pretty interesting. Let's just say that. With that being said, obviously the current commits for the 2023 cycle, Georgia is actually second in the composite rankings right now, but you're looking at a good list of commits here currently. You got Raymond Cottrell, which is a wide receiver out of Florida. DeQuavia Sori, obviously kin with Xavier. Another receiver, both are top 100, if I'm not mistaken. Two tight ends, Pierce Spurlin and Lawson Lucky. We'll talk more about these guys in a little bit. Monster of a man, Beau Hughley. Raquez McElderry, another interior offensive lineman. Seven Cloud, and then you got a pair of cornerbacks, Marcus Washington and Kyan Lee. Love where we're going with this class so far. Obviously, we need more receivers with what we've lost, and those two are current. In my opinion, are going to be great players. I think they're going to be great additions to the 2023 class. Miriam says, "Good afternoon." Good afternoon, Miriam. One of my favorite things here, though, right? Looking at, if I'll pull this back up, I think that what's interesting is the two tight ends, right? I think you look at Pierce Spurlin and Lawson Lucky, both guys, bring different skill sets. And I think it's going to complement the tight end room very well when it gets down to getting these guys on campus and actually starting to play for Georgia. I think it's going to be a big deal. Kind of Pierce Spurlin is pretty big. Not going to lie, 6'6", 220. I think he'll put on a little bit of weight there. And then Lawson Lucky as well, 6'3", 225. I think you kind of look at Lawson as a kind of more of a blocking guy. And then Pierce Spurlin is kind of the same. But I think they're both good receivers as well. Then you look at Beau Hughley. Beau Hughley is, 6'7", 290. I think you might see him put a little bit of weight on, obviously going into his senior year. And then when he gets in here, I expect him to be a tackle at some point. And then going down to Raquez McElderry out of Ennis, Alabama. 6'3", 340, definitely screams interior for me, guard, more so than anything. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But nonetheless, I think, it'll be interesting to see. And then obviously with Marcus Washington being in top 100, or actually 57th overall, if you're looking at composite, 6 foot 170. I think you need to see some weight put on him a little bit. But ideal height there for what Kirby looks for in his cornerbacks. And then Kyan Lee out of Cedar Grove, definitely a thumper. Something, again, that Kirby wants out of his cornerbacks, the ability to go down and make tackles. Good coverage for both of those as well. But what we're going to do here, we're going to jump into some names to know. These guys are uncommitted. And these are some folks that I think that, Georgia fans need. If you're not familiar with, I think you definitely need to get yourselves familiarized with these folks. And we'll start on the offense, right? This is who I want. This is some names to know and targets that I think you might see in the 2023 cycle. We'll start off on the offense. So if you're listening, I'll read these off. So obviously Arch Manning is the big name here. Arch Manning, there's a couple of quarterbacks that Georgia's looking at. Kid Nico out of California is another name. Dylan Lonergan is another one out of Georgia. But I think it's Arch Manning is the key here. Obviously number one overall prospect in the country. Definitely think that's somewhere where you want to get. I think, Georgia has a really good shot at picking up Arch Manning. We'll see when he commits. But like I said, Georgia's in it. And, I honestly think that, there could be a good chance that you do see Arch there. Looking at running backs, I think, there's several running backs that, this 2023 cycle is very elite. But the three that I want to make sure people are aware of is Ruben Owens first out of Texas. It's just nasty speed. Very, very very fast for a running back. Texas football has an interesting, interesting way of running him, but he's fast. All right, there's no question about it. And then you've got obviously Veron Haynes' son, Justice. Right, Justice is another. Is a legacy commit. Ultimately, I think he does end up being a dog. But I think that's another name. And then obviously going back to the image here, you have Trayon Webb. Trayon Webb's another kid that I think could really be an impact player from the 2023 class. Miriam asked if there's any detailed info on the new DB's coach, Fran Brown. Basically, he's a great recruiter. Yes, that is true. Definitely Northeastern recruiter. There's several kids up there in the Northeast that Georgia's taking a look at, Miriam. And with that being said, I think you have kids like, Jonel Aguero and some more that, that have that tie now with Coach Brown here. Obviously, it's kind of an unknown commodity here, from the Georgia fan base perspective. But you're right. I think you have to trust Kirby's decisions. He's merited that with the national title. And the way Kirby handles the DB specifically, I think you're going to see, I think you will see, kind of get micromanaged. I trust Kirby's coaching here. Definitely, I think, Fran probably is just, we can use him for the recruiting, and that's not going to hurt nothing. But I think he was a defensive backs coach at Rutgers, right? Taking a little bit of a demotion, if you want to say, to just physically or just specifically cornerbacks. But the platform is the key there, right? You look at going from Rutgers to Georgia, that's big. So I think that's merits the reason for jumping just to focus on cornerbacks. If you're wondering why Muschamp got adjusted to a safeties coach and co-DC. So you have, obviously a former safety himself playing or coaching the safeties, kind of expected something like that. That I think he'll be a good hire. Just a little bit unknown, sure. But I do think he'll be a good hire. Going back to the offensive names to know. Also, if you're have any questions, we will read them out as we go along. Receivers. I think the big name here is Brandon Ennis out of South Florida. And look, I'm telling you right now, Coach BMAC, when he got hired, that's a big deal because I think that opened his eyes to Georgia and what they're bringing. And from in the past, we've had Coach, we've had him before. With that being said, we know he can recruit, right? BMAC can recruit. You sit there, you deal with, now that he's a receivers coach, I would expect some big time receivers to take a look. Look, he's had success recruiting against Georgia in the past as well. And when he was at Georgia, he was recruiting against Kirby, and that's, I think, another reason why Kirby wants him. He's a good coach, but he can also recruit his ass off. But Brandon Ennis definitely took notice of that hire when it took place. So now I think that's a name that Georgia needs to get. They need to get. I know we've got Sorey and Cottrell, but to top it off, I think getting Brandon Ennis would be the cream of the crop for the receiver class if we could get that. There's no question about that. Yeah, going back to Coach Brown, I think you're correct there, Miriam. Miriam says that maybe Kirby is going to groom him for more, and that could be possible, right? That could be possible. We know that Kirby micromanages the DB class or the DB room harder than about any other one. Obviously, him playing DB in college is probably the reason why for that, right? I have more faith in the DB coaches and things like that than, and look, I love our coaching staff, but Kirby's got his hands in the DBs probably more than anything else. So, and that could be the case, Miriam. It really could. That theory of maybe, getting him in and then letting him branch out to bigger things, kind of getting that Kirby tree, the Coach Kirby tree, if you want to call it. Definitely think that could be a possibility there. Going to tight ends, I accidentally put Lawson Lucky. I forgot he is committed, so we will move on to the offensive linemen. Caden Proctor and Madden Sanker. Look, Caden Proctor is going to be a dude. All right, Caden Proctor is a dude. Promise you that. and Madden Sinker. Madden is a really good prospect out of Georgia, out of the state of Georgia. I want to say top 100, I believe. Look, Caden Proctor, we'll go back to this, out of Iowa. 5th overall, 6'7", 330. That is a monster of a man. That's just a monster of a man. Definitely one of those guys that, Georgia could use to reload on that offensive line. And then Madden Sinker, good, in my opinion, a good prospect. Definitely worth, getting him in this class. I really believe that would be a good pickup there. With that being said, though, we'll look around a little bit here, and we'll read what Miriam has to say, and then we'll switch over to the defense. Miriam asked if I was surprised at the modest raises our coaching staff received after winning the Natty. She was. Honestly, I kind of was. Obviously you see Coach Scott and Coach Muschamp get a significant raise. We haven't heard anything about Coach Kirby Smart yet, but I would expect him to get a massive raise if that's the case. But at the same time, maybe it's these guys understanding that, they want to be here. But I am kind of surprised at how I was expecting more like you were. So I get that. I definitely understand that. It seems modest for what you're hearing other coaches get around the country and everything. So it's one of those things. But I think the guys want to be here. I think they know what they've got here, right? You look at Coach Adai, right? Coach Adai was on the fast track to become a head coach anyway. I think that's his projection. That's his, that's his goal. And, if he wants to come to Georgia for a year and go somewhere else, fair enough. Thank you for your service and, winning a national title with us. So, I think these guys want to be here. Amazing class coming in next year already. Yeah, I mean, look, we went over the commitments, and the commitments alone right now are going to be filling in positions that we need, right? Obviously, there's still a ways to go, and you've already heard the offensive names, but definitely if we were to land most of these kids, I honestly think that it would be a ridiculous class. It most definitely would. With that being said, let's go over to the defense now. All right. And let's make sure here, on the defense. First names first. 3-star, that's not a 3-star at all. Jamal Jarrett out of Grimsley, right up here in North Carolina. Jordan Davis replacement. If you don't believe me, if you see the overlay and you see the picture, you understand. Kid is a monster. Very, very big, very, very athletic for his size. I want to say he's 350 right now, 6'5", 350. Slim it down a little bit, about 330, 340 is probably where it's going to be. That's just fat. That's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. And then and then obviously with Tamarian Parker, another kid that really is one of those kids. He's gonna be a dude. And if we miss him, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt very bad, actually. It just won't be good. Vic Burley's another guy out of Georgia right now, top 50 player. 33 actually. Look, 6'5", 276. That's freak athlete, freak size. Let's go back to see these here. So read some comments here. Patrick, what is up? And Marion, Todd Monken getting more. I think with his situation though, it's either NFL or staying at Georgia. And if there's no offensive coordinator positions calling around, I think he was going to stick at Georgia. So I think that's the situation with Todd Monken. Going back to the defense, though, definitely want to, obviously talk about Caden Mcdonald, another kid, defensive tackle out of the state of Georgia. All these D-line that I've talked about are just ridiculous athletes. They're physical freaks. And that's something that Georgia's gotten accustomed to when it comes to recruiting, right? You look at another guy as well on the D-line. If you've noticed the trend of D-line, it's just I think these guys are really, really good, and they need to be known because I think some of these will end up in the class. If I had to choose, I would say Tamarian Parker, I think Jamal, and I think maybe Vic or Caden. Probably Caden, but I would like to have Vic as well. Both of those guys would take them. KJ, I'm not feeling as strong coming into this class. But KJ's out of New Bern, North Carolina. So, if I had my way, I would take Jamal, Tamarian, and maybe Vic. I think, Caden's going to be a dude as well. Give me Jamal, Tamarian, and Vic, though. I'd love to have that 3. Looking at linebackers, linebackers were not really focused on this much, as much in this cycle for 23. The one name I think people need to know if you're not familiar with is Troy Bowles. There's not a lot of targets right now for your linebackers. With that being said, though, you're going to have to hit a linebacker. I think you have to just to be safe. But where Georgia stands right now with the linebackers that we have, Sori, Mondon, right, JDJ, Chaz Chambliss, Jalen Walker, the list goes on, right? Which is why you're seeing, not really that many linebackers getting targeted. And that's okay, because 2024 is going to be the class, I think, where you focus on the linebackers again. 2024 is absolutely loaded. Absolutely loaded. Miriam or Patrick also says Jamal Jarrett all day. Yeah, the kid's a freak, man. Miriam also says that he might have incentives not disclosed. Maybe. Hello, Joe. How are you? Let's see. Going back to the defense. Now we focus on the DBs here, right? Jonel Aguero out of, I think it's Connecticut. We talked about Coach Brown getting hired as as cornerbacks coach. Do not be surprised if that's the case, trying to recruit him up there. Just in my opinion, I think that's what happens. Also looking at Cormani Mclean, really big name to know here. Really big name to know. Getting touted a lot by Florida, things like that. I think it could come down to Florida, the Florida schools in Georgia, things like that. Caleb Downs' brother plays for UNC, elite prospect. And then AJ Harris out of Alabama. Look, if I had my choice here, give me Jonel and Cormani, give me Jonel Aguero and Caleb Downs and AJ Harris. I just don't feel as comfortable with Cormani. I'd love to have him here. If I could get all 4, awesome. But keep in mind what we've already got committed. Sorry. So, obviously if you add Brandon Ennis, to the receivers, you sit there and think about that. You have, say if you get Arch Manning and then you get one of the 2 running backs, and we'll go over here. So if you get Arch Manning and, if I had to choose running backs, in my opinion, give me Justice and Ruben. Those are my 2 that I would want. Look, I want all of them, but if I had to choose, this is what I would choose. Facebook user says that they hope that Jonel ends up in the 23 class. Absolutely agree. Jonel's a ridiculous athlete, man. That's one of the things you're learning with these recruits. For the most part, you're trying to stick with Georgia, but at the end of the day, it's okay to go out and go national a little bit, right? I think that's okay. But look, if we go back to the offensive side of the ball, right, with current commits, if you give me Arch and give me Ruben and Justice, and then you add Brandon Ennis and these 2 offensive linemen, right? So you have Arch, you have Justice, you have Ruben Owens, and then you add Brandon Ennis on top of these 2 commits, let alone the tight ends, right? Let alone the tight ends, it would be scary. This class has the potential to be absolutely loaded. And Miriam says that the incentives comment was about Monken. Yeah, no, I think that's what it was. No, you're fine, Miriam. I figured that's what it was about. Look, this class has the potential to be historic, and that's saying something for what it's worth. Definitely thinking, looking at the defensive side of the ball, right? Because everybody focuses on our defense. But I think the biggest name in this 23 class is Arch Manning, and it's rightfully so. I don't know if you're not familiar, recently, I want to say Cooper, his dad, basically was saying that there's 6 schools instead of, it wasn't Texas and Georgia, like, like most of this narrative has been out here recently. So, you're still hearing, you hear Florida, LSU on top of Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia, and Bama. Clemson was a school that he had went to twice, and they're off of the consideration list, which is, look, that's telling, but at the same time, I think that's fine, right? Looking at, my opinion, I think you really have to think that Florida, or not Florida, but Florida and LSU probably are just there. I don't see them being too much of a threat. Maybe LSU with the Louisiana ties. The Mannings, in my opinion, they're not worried about NIL. I just don't see them being that worried about that. But I do think Georgia has a really good shot here at landing him. And look, there's some quarterback dominoes that are going to fall. They're going to fall. Nico being the first one. Nico, when he commits, if Arch hasn't committed by then, I think that will tell some things about where Arch could be leaning. So obviously the first major quarterback domino, the first commitment, is going to kind of lead that domino effect. But at the same time, look, I think as long as Coach Luke, Buster Faulkner, I think Buster Faulkner is doing an excellent job in this recruitment for Arch. And then obviously Kirby, a lot of people may not realize this based off of all the jokes and ribs and things like this, but Kirby and Peyton are actually really close. They're really good friends. So, Georgia's got a lot of connections there, right? And I think that's going to matter in the long run with this commitment and the recruitment, I should say. But yeah, I think Archman is probably the name for the whole class, right? I think that's the whole country is looking at that. And, wherever he lands, I think you should expect the recruits to follow in suit on that, because he's just one of those guys, right? Like, you know how it is. If you get the foundation quarterback, yeah. If you get that like you can get some elite recruits just based off of quarterbacks. It happens all the time. Miriam, she says she cannot imagine him wasting his college career on Florida, LSU, or Texas. Yeah, look, I think he wants to play SEC ball, right? So I think you'll see him play SEC ball, but at the same time, I think you want to see him compete for titles. And right now, the uncertainty, I don't think you see either one of those three in contention for titles. I really think you look at Bama, LSU, or not LSU, Bama and Georgia. That's really the only two that are actual contenders for titles. You had the legacy with Eli there Eli and Archie at that point at Ole Miss. So I think that becomes a true problem there too. I just don't know if I think you're right, Miriam. I just don't know if you see him ending up at Florida, LSU, or Texas. Maybe Texas out of those three. But at the same time, look, Texas put out some quarterbacks in the past. But the issue there is, how much is the development, right? The development is going to be key there. And I think, honestly, with, from Georgia's perspective, they love what Todd Monken's doing with this offense. They like Todd Monken and Buster Faulkner being a guy that's been under, been under there before. And I think that's only helpful too. Just in case Todd Monken does leave. T-Mac, what's up, dog fam? Hello and welcome to the party, my man. So I want to hear y'all's thoughts here. If I need to pull up graphics, just let me know. Who are some names that you might want to hear? Obviously, I think on the defense, if the defensive side of the ball, pull this back up. Look, there's some names here that people probably already know. Vic Burley. One of the things that stuck out to me with Vic Burley was his video at the national title ceremony. That definitely stuck out to me. It blew him away. It definitely blew him away, and rightfully so. If anybody went in there, seeing that, like, just complete pandemonium and chaos, right? So many fans there on the bus and things like that. It was insane, right? Jamal Jarrett was blown away as well. And honestly, I think that's a big time thing for that. I think that's going to help, right? Winning the national title was just a start for recruiting, in my opinion, for Georgia. So with that being said, I definitely think that, like I said, this class has a potential, right? And look, this is way too early. So these are just some names for now. And look, there's going to be more names that we definitely hear, out of the Georgia space and everything like that. But these are some names that I thought would kind of fit in well. T Mac says Jonell and Harris. Yeah, AJ Harris. Yes, AJ Harris. I like all of these guys. I really do. Obviously talk about the DBs. I think Jonell Guerrero is a guy that you really need to have. And honestly, the reason why I went Jonell and Caleb is because I think Caleb, you just cannot let him get out of the state. You just can't. North Carolina is probably going to be a big part there, just based off of, the connections with his brother, Josh. Josh is probably one of the best receivers in the country this coming up year. So that plays a big part there. Definitely want to keep him in Georgia, obviously, if you can. So I think, you go for Jonell, and I think you go for Caleb. Miriam says she feels sorry for arching away what incredible pressure on him when he starts wherever he goes. Tough on 18. Yeah. I agree with you. Hopefully the hype, hopefully he lives up to the hype, because there's a lot of it. And I think that's obviously based off of the Manning name, obviously, and there's a lot of speculation that if his name was anything different, his last name, would he be the number one overall recruit? Maybe. I don't know. Right. Definitely think he's, obviously I think he'll be I think he'll be very good wherever he goes. But, it seems like there's so much expectations based off of the last name that you got to be careful with this, right? You just got to be careful. Definitely got to be careful. And honestly, though, looking at this class, looking at the offensive side of the ball, I think we have to load up on running backs, because after this year, you could definitely see, Kendall and Kenny leave, right? You still have Branson, Andrew Paul, right? You probably would see Dejon Edwards stick around for another year, but getting two of these three, at least maybe four, if you add Richard Young, which I didn't have on this list, you bring in two of those guys, and your running backs room not missing a beat. Miriam says we definitely have good connections. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. The connections to give us a good chance at Arch. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't think Georgia has a good shot, I think you really need to reevaluate your stance. Georgia is a really good team. Owens and Justice are must-haves. Yeah, you're agreeing with me. Definitely think that. Look, Trayon Webb is not a bad back at all either. So let's not discredit that. Let's not discredit Richard Young. I just don't feel as comfortable with Richard Young being a dog at the end of the class, more so than I do see, having that chance as Ruben and Justice. Trayon Webb could very, very well, be here too. I think it's going to be first come, first serve in the running backs room. Nonetheless, I think Justice will be a dog. Look, I think the Verron Haynes situation makes sense. I think he fits well. I think you're going to see him get recruited hard. But if I had to choose Owens or Trayon Webb, I just got to go Owens. It's just a different guy, man. It's insane. I love Trayon Webb, but Ruben Owens, if you watch his tape, it is insane. It's crazy. And his speed is just insane for what it's worth. And he's playing in Dallas. I think he's playing in Texas, and Texas is known for his football. Like, I trust that. If he's running away from folks like that, trust me, I'm believing that. I'm believing it. With that being said, though, guys, we're gonna end this, and we'll come in for another Q&A for a little bit. But on that note, join our Discord. It is free, or become a Patreon subscriber at these links right here. You will find them in the show notes. T-Max, before we head out, Owens is different. Absolutely. No doubt about that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up, and we'll stick around for a Q&A. Have a great day, and we'll see you Friday. Go Dogs. And we're back for Q&A. All right, Brigade, I need your comments, questions. If you have any questions, feel free. This is your time. to get answers if I have them. So I want to ask a question for everybody. What position group do you think is going to be the main focus for 2023? Obviously we've got names that I listed, but what position groups do you think Georgia focuses on the most? While we wait for people to answer that question, look, I think you see another class where you focus on receivers. I think you need receivers in this class, and honestly, I think you look at receivers and probably DBs. Probably DBs, just based off the attrition that we've seen. I think it's going to be a continuous thing. It's going to be interesting, especially at safeties. Losing Tyke, Chris Smith, Poole at the end of next year, this 2023 class is, you're still going to have to replace a lot of guys. So I think you'll see a heavy presence in the DB room. You're going to have to. You're just going to have to do that. Let's see. Let's go back to the defense. I think another name here, guys, if you're not familiar with him, is Jamal Jarrett. He's in the picture here to the right. And when I'm saying this in all sincerity, this kid reminds me so much of Jordan Davis. Just the size, how he plays. It's one of those things where, watching his tape, it's just, the ability to eat space but still shed and make plays is just wild. When he wants to bull rush, there you go. It's one of those things that I think, Jamal can be a 3-down player. I think he can be a 3-down player. It'll be interesting when he gets into Georgia how the the conditioning and nutrition programs will affect him, obviously in a good way. If he sticks around 320 to 330, 6'5", and playing in the middle, that's going to be scary. It's going to be really scary but I think Jamal's a kid that Georgia has to get. Obviously you've got the in-state Tar Heels and the Wolfpack. You have to worry about North Carolina, in my opinion. But look, there's a plethora of schools trying to, get his services. Georgia's got it. This is a must-have for Georgia. If I had to choose one of the whole class, this is a must-have. He definitely slept on. But I do want to kind of go back to the defense again. Look, Vic Burley and Tamarian Parker, I think, those guys are going to be insane. They're going to be absolutely insane. If you can get them in to beat Bulldogs, man, it's going to be huge. Definitely massive. If there's no other questions, I'm going to end this, but I'm going to give one more shot for people to ask questions. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about recruiting. Anything Georgia related, we will make it work. Let's see. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap this up. With that being said, though, have a great day and great weekend, and go Dogs.